This video is intended for viewers aged 13 and up. If you are not 13 yet, please leave. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Fantastic 4-week review or whatever. And today, we are getting to the figure that people are probably most excited for me to show off. Here we have what is probably the most wanted figure out of the wave, as he is the hardest to find. You know? Because, like, I went to the toy store, I found the Fantastic Four, I went online, I saw She-Hulk, but this one was the hardest one for me to find at a decent price. So, without a further ado, let us get into the main villain of the Fantastic Four, their main nemesis, Dr. Doom. Now, unlike a lot of this wave, this Dr. Doom feels a lot more classic than the rest of the figures, which have a very contemporary design aesthetic. Though yes, this one does have a contemporary head. There's an accessory that'll fix that for you, which we can get into earlier. And besides, Dr. Doom's design hasn't really changed all that much from the original comics, so this one just feels extremely classic, though it does fit in with your more modern Marvel Legends figures, which just makes it a really nice figure to have, finally, an update for in the modern day. Though probably we didn't get an update for so long because Marvel didn't like the Fantastic Four and the X-Men because Disney didn't own it until like last year, which is why in Marvel Legends this year has been full of Fantastic Four and X-Men. That's just how the cookie crumbles, but I guess it's good to have them now, I guess. You know, finally, to fill out a couple of waves of characters that people have needed in their collections. So yeah, that's nice. Maybe that's why there's a Sentinel as the HasLab project. But yeah, let's get closer into this dude. Starting off with the head sculpt, man, do I love this head sculpt. Like, there's a we might get into it later in the accessory section, but this figure has a great head design. I feel like this is the Doom that I keep. This is the Doom head I keep on my version on my shelf, because I just really like how it looks. I really like the specific sculpting of it. Maybe that's just because I like cool dudes with robotic metal heads, but I just really like it. And the hood works really well, though it does obscure the head a little bit, makes it look a little bit dark on shelving. Though I'm sure that could be fixed with a little bit of like lighting under him, that allows the light to go into the hood, I guess. I guess that's really my only complaint, but otherwise I do really enjoy this figure. Moving on to the torso for a bit, I'm going to keep the cape on, but I'll go to the back so that you can see what his back looks like without the cape. And as many people have mentioned, he has back thrusters, which is a small detail that they really didn't have to include, because for most people on the collection, he's going to have the cape on like that and obscure his entire back section. But they included it anyways, and they made it so that it's compatible with the blast effects that came with the 80th anniversary Iron Man, which is just really nice. And I say specifically the 80th anniversary one because those peg holes work for any blast effect. However, most blast effects have little bits of extra blast that don't allow it to fit in there, but the 80th anniversary Iron Man ones are able to have that little bit of blast be taken off. And as such, you can fit it into there. Just little pinstripe things. Now moving on to the front, he has a very interestingly textured body. I feel like a lot of the budget went into this figure because this is an 100% new figure. Most Marvel Legends are not 100% new unless they're like a movie figure. Like the movie Spider-Man and the movie Iron Man. Those are always completely new sculpts. But for this figure, for most comic figures, they don't do completely new sculpts. However, for this figure, they went with a completely new sculpt, and I really appreciate that, because all the texturing on this figure's body and torso just makes it feel interesting. Like, with the cloth has a very different feel to the armor, and I just feel like that's just a little bit of attention to detail that they just really needed, because it kind of has like a rough finish, because it's got like a cross-stitched pattern if you look really close to it. And it just feels so nice, and oh my gosh. It's just great to see. And then there's also a bunch of tiny little bits of sculpting that are just there that are just really nice details. Like, oh my gosh. Moving on to the arms, there is a bit of marbling on the metal bits. They're plastic, but I feel like that's kind of fine because it kind of looks like an imperfect metal casting that he wears on his armor, and the armor bits are very smooth. They're a lot smoother than typical Marvel Legends plastic, and that kind of gives the illusion that it's made of metal. You know, I just love this attention to detail and the different sculpting in the metal arms. I'm sure they have another Knight character that they're going to reuse this arm for, but it's just so impressive and so cool that it's all there in the arms. Moving on to the legs, this cape bit is made, this waist cape or whatever, is made of a flexible rubbery plastic, which allows us to get out of the way so that you can see his metal legs, which, once again, I'm sure they're going to use it on another Knight character, but it's nice that this is able to move out of the way. The holster here has a little D on it as well. It's just a really nice detail, like, oh my gosh, they just went above and beyond with the sculpting of this figure, and the buckle and the leather bits of the buckles have little bits of brown painting. They didn't have to do that, but they did, and oh my gosh, this figure is just so well done, so well designed, so well made, and I'm really happy with it. This figure's design is just great. However, what's just as great is his accessories, as he goes a little bit above average compared to your typical Marvel Legends figure. I feel like all of the budget went into this figure, you know? Now, sadly for this accessory section, I'm not going to be swapping the hands, because one problem with that harder plastic is that it's very hard to get the hands out of this guy. So I just leave one set of hands in. So, what he comes with is a pair of just plain metal fists, you know, just plain basic as heck metal fist pieces, you know, as you usually do. On the left side, you have this kind of open, like, evil, maniacal hand, you know, your typical, like, evil, like, hoo, look at me, I'm holding my glass of wine so I can sip it evilly hand, you know? As you do. And for the right side, he has a trigger finger hand. Why would you have a trigger finger hand? Well, if we go back to that holster that I mentioned previously, you can undo it. It's just very difficult, which I'm gonna fall back and then cut back to once it's open. There we go, nice and open. You can actually remove the gun from his holster, and it looks kind of like a World War II-esque gun, you know. It's kind of Megatron-y. It's kind of a Megatron gun. And sadly, that does get warped, and you can just fit it right into his gun hand. And oh my gosh, I love that they went above and beyond and just, oh, fuck it, give him a gun. Give him a gun. Give him the gun. Give him the gun. And now, yes, he can shoot people. However, now is the one accessory that I don't see myself using personally, but that's just because of me, but it's a nice detail for people who did get the Walgreens exclusive version of the figure. Doom comes with a second head sculpt that more closely resembles his typical, well, not his typical, his classic design from, like, the classic era, you know, with the blue, super classic blue suit, you know, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby art style stuff, which is very nicely done. I'm very happy that they added this. Though, honestly, I don't see myself getting too much leverage out of it. Though, honestly, one bit of mishap is that the mask is slightly misaligned, which is very odd. I don't get why it's misaligned like this. My only real issue with this head is that it's honestly a bit small, so I typically keep on the other hooded head. Just like with his sculpting, his accessories make him a nice, above-average, great Marvel Legends figure. And I just think that's just really cool that he included just so much in his toolbox, I guess. But now let's finally get on to articulation. His articulation is in some places above average and other places pretty average. The most above average area his articulation has is in the head. He has the typical head articulation where it's able to go up and back and then side to side, where it's got the ball joint and the hinge joint, you know, so on and so forth, though it is limited by the hood and the cape colliding with each other, sadly. When you have the cape on, it's able to go up that far, down about that far. But however, his neck is able to swivel. I'm not going to show it here because it's really hard to get to, but his neck's able to swivel side to side, which I guess allows it to... Oh, there we go. Yeah, I got it to work. Which I guess is able to give it, like, different looks, which is honestly a pretty nice addition. The arms, on the other hand, are really stuck standard. You got your swivel around joint, you know, your hinge outward, which works pretty well, honestly, for someone with shoulder pads. You have your bicep swivel, your double jointed elbow, which is able to get in that far, your swivel at the hand, and a typical wrist joint. Now, sadly, he doesn't come with too much bodily articulation. It's just kind of a ball joint that allows him to swivel around, and he's able to do your typical hinging forward and backward, which is very nicely done. I personally really enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy it too. Now, the legs are limited by this flexible cloth, though. Since it's flexible, he's able to get up pretty darn far. Back, not super far, sorry about that. But yeah, not back super far. But there's also butt sculpting, if I'm not mistaken. And since there are cuts on the side, he's able to go fully out, which is a lot better than a lot of other Marvel Legends figures. He has a typical thigh swivel, though it is a bit hampered because of the material. He's got a double jointed knee, as per usual on a Marvel Legends figure. And his ankles are pretty darn different because they're able to go forward and back, but they're also able to swivel side to side, which is one addition that I just think is very necessary. And it also has the ankle rocker. Yeah. The articulation on this figure is honestly superb. The only things that really hamper it for me are the waist cape here, which can get in the way of the forward and backward movement, and the cape, the peg it's on, is pretty darn weak, so it tends to fall off, which can be annoying when you're trying to articulate him, but it's fine. It goes right back in as soon as you're done articulating. Hey, maybe if you want, you can just take it off while you're articulating him and then put it right back on. But yeah, the articulation is amazing on this figure. Now finally, move on to size comparisons. He's a pretty average-sized Marvel Legends. I know you can't believe that, but he's pretty darn average, though. From what I can tell, he's about 7 inches tall to the top of the head. Pretty average. Slightly taller, but pretty average if I'm not too crazy. Now to compare to other figures, here we have Marvel Legends Mark 7 Iron Man, a Star Wars The Black Series Sith Trooper, Marvel Legends Iron Spider, a fellow villain with a weird evil hand, Superior Octopus, AIM Soldier, my previous review, the Marvel Legends She-Hulk, the amazing Yamaguchi Bleeding Edge Iron Man, and if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Doom was supposed to be an Iron Man villain initially, which is really interesting. And finally, his lifelong rival, Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. All in all, what can I say that hasn't already been said about this figure? This is a must-have for a Marvel Legends collection. And a collection so sparse with so few villains in it. This is just one amazing figure that even outclasses some of the best figures. It's definitely a great replacement for a Dr. Doom in your collection if you want a more modern Dr. Doom. But also works if you want a classic Dr. Doom to go with those Waltings exclusive Fantastic Four versions of the characters. So yeah, I'll definitely pick this up. If you were only to pick up one, pick up this one. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this review of this action figure, and tune in next time, where we're finally able to finish off this week by reviewing this Marvel Legends Waves Build-Up figure, the Super Skrull. I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye. Like, comment, subscribe, I guess. So yeah, bye.